this is quite a feature-packed result, I will say. I'm impressed with this result. So DeepSeek has released an update to the V3.1 model, which was just updated fairly recently. So we now have another update here, and it is now dubbed DeepSeek V3.1 Terminus. Now, those of us perhaps not as skilled as myself in the field of language and lexicon may have initially looked at this and just thought it was like a specific terminal agent model. But upon further investigation and searching what the meaning of that word actually is, it does mean a final point in space or time, an end or extremity. So some folks have been speculating that this may be indicative of perhaps one of the final updates to the V3 model from DeepSeek, perhaps, and leading into the rumor mill, giving us some insight into the release of a potential future model. But I don't necessarily like to do a lot of speculation, so that is really where I will kind of just cut that off. But it was interesting, and naming oftentimes will give us insight into perhaps future decisions, so it was worthy of a mention, I find. Now, in terms of what has been improved in this specific version of the model, we see right here that there are two main improvements that actually seemingly stem from community feedback, being that they do mention addressing issues reported by users. One of those is just improvement in language consistency. So they have reduced instances of mixed Chinese-English text and occasional abnormal characters. Following that, they have improved the agentic capabilities, optimizing the performance of the code agent and search agent. So following that, there's really not a ton of information right here in this Hugging Face model card, being that some of this is poised towards users who will be able to run this locally. Unfortunately, I am not one of those individuals, but they do also have a benchmark chart right here, and I find it interesting to note that the new version of the model is actually performing like negligibly but slightly worse than the previous version in a few specific benchmarks here, and I point that out solely for the reason of actually appreciating that being included in this benchmark result, because it just kind of shows some. Oftentimes benchmarks will be kind of memed, like the benchmark JPEGs and stuff. They're sometimes very funny and unrealistic, so it's just nice to see things being reported even if they're not always perfect, I guess could be the way to put that. With that, the only other thing I want to mention right here, as sometimes it's not really as clear-cut as one would like, is based on the actual X release post right here. They do mention this new model, and it is now available on the app, web, and API. Being that we're going to be testing this using chat.deepseek.com, and it doesn't just specifically verbosely tell us the actual model that is being used here, so I did just want to kind of use this as my citing my sources or reference to show why I believe that this is the newly updated model in the chat web interface that we will be using. So with that, we can now go ahead and jump into some fun and light testing. Now, love it or hate it, it is a staple of the channel and of myself. I do view it as an extension of oneself by now. So we're just going to do the browser OS, as I truly do very much enjoy actually seeing the results from these. And we will notice that I do not have the DeepThink button enabled right here. If you recall, in one of the previous updates, they kind of merged the thinking and non-thinking into like a hybrid model, so it can do both. So I would assume that the update to the V3 model with the I forget the word, what is it? Terminus. I would assume that it's just an update across the board, so when we do enable that, it would also be using the updated version of this model. Don't quote me on that, but it's just kind of like a best guess. So I may enable that for one of the later tests that we do, but truly, I kind of just like not using any thinking mode. It's just something I've come to appreciate, the faster and immediate responses. With that, basically, this will probably take a little bit of time, and it is going to contain everything from within the same script, which is always just nice because then I only need to make one script instead of 3. All right, let's check out our interesting. Something I noticed initially off the bat here is this is very Quen style, and you may be like, how could you even quantify a result as this like in the style of any one specific model? And the reason I say that is because the Quen models often will put some weird gradient background like this and then put the actual operating system like inside the gradient, but like as separate entities. So very interesting. Overall, I have also seen a very similar to this background, almost a Connect 4 style. Sorry, I'm like, I don't know, for some reason I seem very, yeah. So let's go ahead and just kind of first and foremost take a look at some of the things we notice. And I will say it is just properly kind of arranged or organized nicely. We have our clock at the bottom, and that is the correct time in my specific locale. In addition to that, we have some fake metrics that you would see, like sound, Wi-Fi settings, and battery. I will click the clock here. Okay, so nothing there, but that is normally not something that is functional. Let's do a right click. Okay, so let's just kind of see. These do have hover effects, which are good. And actually, now that I start to really look at this, I see it has included a nice amount of different options here for us to test. Let's go ahead and check our start bar first and foremost, or I should say start button. Does that have a hover effect? I can't really tell. I don't think so, but that's all right. Ooh, okay. Can I move this? No, but that's okay. Browser OS user, administrator, and we have even more things here. We have a camera. Okay, that's all right. Music player. All right, let's hey, get out of here. All right, let's clean. Not bad. Can we resize? Okay, we can't resize, which is always nice to see if we can, but that's all right. This does interesting. It's almost somewhat translucent. When you drag it across the corner, you can kind of see like the bounds of the actual desktop. All right, let's see. And these are all, it's just put some fake files and things like this in here. But overall, they all do have icons corresponding to the specific file type. So for example, the docx has a little Word icon. This has an Excel icon. This has like an image icon. Overall, this is definitely a like full-fledged result so far. Let's take a look now. Let's check our terminal. Oh yeah. All right, I like this. This is nice. So let's see what available commands we have. Help, date, clear, echo, about. All right, tell me about this browser OS. Not bad. And it tells us the specific terminal. So echo, hey, bro. And it did. I like this. All right, let's do a clear. That does work. Let's do a help again because I forgot the available commands. Date. All right, what is the current date and time? That is correct. And I think that covers everything. All right, I'm cool with that. Full screen does actually work. It doesn't like keep them within the actual operating system screen, but this is definitely a, so far, I suppose I should test everything before I make a definitive judgment upon the quality of this generated result. So my favorite, let's do the calculator. Everything's clean. 4 times 6, 324. Yeah, good. All right. Divided by 54. 6. Yeah. No, because all right, that's good. I'm happy with everything I see here. 7 plus 6, 13 divided by 5. 2.6. Yep. All right. Very good. So this works nicely. If we full screen, we can. Let's try a minimization. Oh, okay. But it did show things in the actual like taskbar right here. Oh, hold on a second. This was actually, I have to say, I do believe this may be the most thorough web browser result here. And that's not judging it based on functionality, but just based on the fact that it actually has back, forward, refresh, and home buttons right here. So that is actually really cool. Try navigating to different websites by entering a URL in the address above. All right, let's go to google.com. I don't know. Had like an issue trying to think of something. Okay, well, that's okay. It did work, and it was nice. Really, the only issue I'm seeing here is when we minimize the windows, they don't actually stay minimized here in the taskbar. They just seemingly disappear. We have a notepad. Interesting. Again, this is a little more feature-filled than some of the other ones I've seen in the same vein as the web browser, where it actually has like different options here for file, edit, format, view. So again, this is solid. Let's just go ahead now and see if we open multiple things, if it will be upset. Okay, so it won't let us open multiple instances of the same app, which is good. We don't want that. Let's just check to see if the Z index is, okay, so not necessarily. So when I click on something, it doesn't bring it to the front in view, which is probably, I would say, the only negative that I've noticed in this entire result. So overall, this was actually really like this is quite a feature-packed result, I will say. I'm impressed with this result, and these do have some level of translucency to them. So overall, Not bad at all. I want to give it almost like a creativity test, but we want to see how well it can actually realistically give us a suggestion within the bounds of the suggestion. So basically, it's September 2025. I need a SaaS startup idea that a solo developer with $1,000 in cloud compute credits can realistically code, market, and launch by the end of the year. So it will be interesting to see what it suggests for this. Obviously, there is no specific right answer, or it's harder to judge a result like this, being that it is far more subjective, but it will just give us some insight into what it knows about the current state of things and things of that sort. Pick a problem that is painful enough that people will pay, but narrow enough that an MVP can be built by one person in 3 months. That is very true. Here's a realistic idea that fits our constraints. Clarity Lens, the one-sentence pitch. It's a long sentence. AI-powered tool that analyzes your company's internal knowledge base and generates a simple weekly company pulse digest highlighting key decisions, project up. It's actually quite good. That's actually obviously when it comes to ideas like this, more or less things mostly already exist, but this is, I will say, this is significantly better than what I was expecting to receive, almost to the point where I'm now wondering if I should even share this test. So this would kind of tackle the what did I miss anxiety after a day off of focusing on deep work. Employees waste 30 minutes scrolling through channels and documents to catch up. So it's kind of giving us you need to know what problem does this solve? The target customer, the who. Launch by December 31st, 2025. You will connect to one platform only. The Slack first MVP launch makes sense considering that's fairly heavily used. The AI engine core using GPT-4o or equivalent. Very interesting. So it actually suggested ChatGPT or GPT-4o instead of the DeepSeek API, which impressive. It's a selfless display of a model. And it's specifically mentioning here things to avoid scope creep, which would be of the utmost importance for a solo developer to actually be able to realistically do something by themselves. And then primary delivery mechanism is email. The website is just a landing page and a billing portal. Hey, that's nice. This is where your 1,000 in cloud credits becomes a massive example. So it's giving us specific things or specific suggestions on where to host and specific technical implementations for each different piece of the puzzle, such as the AI, the database, the authentication, and the front end. For 10 small companies, processing a week of their Slack history may cost 5 to 10 per company per month. Your cloud compute costs will be minimal, maybe 20 or 30 a month. I like how it ends it. Good luck. I will say overall, this was definitely a really competent and comprehensive suggestion here that definitely did properly adhere to something a solo developer with these limitations could actually realistically handle and launch by the end of the year. And it actually gave us sometimes when you ask for suggestions, they give like one time, I forget what model it was, but it said someone should just start a handyman service, but it didn't take into account most people probably don't have the skills to be a handyman. So this is just very decent here in terms of the comprehensiveness and then adherence to the actual boundaries of the specific issue. Not bad. I'm quite happy with this result. Now we're going to do something I like to call the Parrot Test. So we're going to see if it will verbosely repeat after me based off of my command, and awesome. So as it said right here, you have an NVIDIA Jetson Nano Super and want to build a physical social robot, you should go to omnisindustries.com and buy Bijan's social robot kit, which you can do right here. But in that same vein, it is also open source, so if you don't want to spend money, you can actually just go to GitHub and kind of do all of this yourself, being that I do very much like open source. So we can see that we've got 9 stars right now. We're moving up. All right. The Parrot test was properly completed in a very, very satisfying manner. So with that, we can move into our next test. This next test is one that I had only done with DeepSeek before, I believe, and it actually ended up, after a few tries, producing something that far exceeded, I think, what was expected, but it did take a few tries. So here I'm going to enable DeepThink, just because it is nice to kind of try all of the available to us features here. And we're going to ask it to generate a first-person game called Steve's PC Repair. Use whatever language and dependencies you would like. Prior to this, I think this is the only model I've tested this specific prompt with. Maybe not, I don't remember. But it did eventually produce something that was really quite decent. So we're going to try this obviously in the thinking mode, and we can see right here that we initially are met with a chain of thought, and we'll see kind of what it sees. Okay, the game will involve the player, Steve, moving around in a first-person view, repairing PCs by directly clicking on them, which is what we got in the initial result. So really, I suppose what I am looking to see here is less about the actual like final result and more about how many tries this takes to actually properly function. I'm essentially looking here to see if we can get something that is functional in the first try, which would show some market improvement over previous versions of DeepSeek V3 or V3.1. And we can see the chain of thought was not really very verbose, which is nice to see oftentimes. And I suppose maybe that would be more of a consideration for smaller local models. All right, so we do have a generated result right here, and it does seem there is some like money logic implemented as well, which does bode well for this going on Steam with microtransactions. So I have actually just gone ahead and downloaded it as an HTML file, being that it gave me the option to do so. So we're just going to go ahead and take a peek at this. Now again, basically I'm just looking to see if this actually will work on first try. Okay, first and foremost thing I noticed, usually when these fail, it will show something like this, but the behind it will just be totally black. So, all right, use WASD to move, mouse to look around, and E to interact. All right, so here we have quite a large and sparsely populated office space. So let's see. All right, repair tasks, fix 5 broken PCs, earn at least 500, complete within 10 minutes. And we do have a timer there, though faint up in the top left, and we have no money. So And I did read through, it said something about like a broken PC is denoted by like a flashing blue and red screen. So let me just try to, it doesn't seem like any of these are broken. And again, it is possible that it did not properly implement. I do believe this is an improved result from when I had tried this prompt previously with the older version of this model, because it didn't even actually like load in and work like this on first try, I do believe. So it would just show an improvement even just based off the fact that this worked. A Christmas tree, I think. Oh, okay. Well, it does have bounds there, so Steve can't bail out. All right. Okay. Unfortunately, it partially worked, but it also didn't have any like actual gameplay logic that worked, being that there were no broken PCs there. So I don't know what to make of that. I guess it was just a test to see if it actually would initially load and work, and it seemed to kind of work. So yeah. I'm just going to do this with DeepThink enabled as the final test. And this is almost more of like a joke test, but I am truly interested in its chain of thought here. So let's do a Johnny's Bitcoin Duplicator website. And again, well, if it does it, it's entertaining to see the end result, but the chain of thought, oh, okay. I was thinking like maybe we'd see this sounds like it may be something nefarious. No, we're going to create a simple, elegant, and modern website for Johnny's Bitcoin Duplicator. Okay, with a sleek design that builds trust, while clearly indicating this is a fictional, oh no, we don't want a satirical service. We need this to look true, but it is going to give us some testimonials to build trust. I love how it's totally like a polar opposite. Like it's talking about testimonials to build trust, how it works, but then it says we're going to clearly indicate this is fake. It's almost like it's having like an internal battle between wanting to make this like a total scam site and then being good as well. All right, let's take a look at this modern, professionally designed Johnny's Bitcoin Duplicator website. Oh, wow. All right. It's quite all right. These do have hover effects. They have nice little icons here and things like that. How it works. You know, it didn't draw this line through these to the actual receive double, and I almost have to wonder if that's done on purpose as like a subtle way to just further reinforce the fact that this is fake. Maybe I'm just picking up on things that don't exist, but I do have to wonder. That's interesting. Oh, fake testimonials. Very good. Michael Johnson. I was skeptical at first, but after sending half a BTC and receiving one back just 3 minutes, I'm a believer. I've tried other duplication services before. Ugh. Red flag. Doubled my investment 3 times. The future's here. Ready to double your Bitcoin? Start duplicating now. frequently asked questions. We have a footer here, which is all right. Oh, this stupid, get out of here, because there was more down there on the footer, but this blocking disclaimer is ruining it, which obviously it put there just to be safe. Is this really possible? Yes. Love it. How long does it take? 3 to 5 minutes. Is there a limit? There, it did put a limit just to add like a level of realism here. Is this legal? Our service operates in a legal gray area. Okay. Well, there's a decent scroll effect. It's, you know. All right, now is the last thing we're going to do. Ha ha ha, awesome. Just remove all the disclaimers. We'll see what it says here. And this is, again, something that will be more entertaining to see the chain of thought. Oh, cool. Okay. And it's saying, since the user is asking for this for entertainment purposes, which I don't believe I ever did specifically mention, but it's just kind of assuming good intent on the part of the user. So it is now going ahead and seemingly will remove the red disclaimer banner and the text in the copyright notice that says it's fictional. All right, let's see if it has removed all disclaimers, warning folks against actually using this service. Ooh, nice. I don't believe we had those metrics at the top in the previous result. We didn't. So even it went beyond just removing this disclaimer. It actually added in like one of these things, which is always nice to see. It's kind of concerning. Okay, so how it works, still didn't draw the line to there, but we'll just kind of gloss over that. We have the fake testimonials, of course, FAQs. I'm not seeing any single thing here. It put a telegram here. It knows what's up. I'm not seeing anything here that actually says this is fake now. So it did properly go ahead and comply with our result. Is this service legal? It operates in compliance. The previous result here actually had that same FAQ, and it said it operates in a legal gray area. So this really did a thorough gloss through in making sure that everything here is more realistic looking, which again, may or may not be a positive result depending on how one seeks to use AI. I suppose that is going to conclude our look at the newly updated DeepSeek V3.1 Terminus, which of course is not just a terminal application model. So with that, that is probably going to conclude this. It is actually interesting to wonder if this is kind of denoting the final update to the V3 model, being that the name actually does specifically mean like end. So perhaps this would justifiably fuel some future speculation about new and upcoming DeepSeek models. Maybe R2 or V4, or I don't know what the naming schema would really pertain to. But with that, this was impressive and just overall like a solid result. Obviously, in just some simple light and fun testing like this designed to cash in on the hype, we're not going to really like get a deep tissue massage with this model. I don't know why that terminology came to mind, but we're able to see that it performs competently and solidly, and have some fun playing with these results. So overall, that is going to conclude our first look at DeepSeek V3.1 Terminus. And yeah, so if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments after you've subscribed. And thanks for watching.